So fraud is obviously an area that continues to evolve, that keeping up with what's happening with the fraudsters, as well as the different types of uh, payment types and apps and other new technologies is a bit of a challenge. So what strategies can you recommend for companies to try to stay ahead of the fraudsters or at least keep up with them? And maybe Alex, you can start, and then I'd love to hear you fill up too.
Yeah, so the idea is a fraudster will strike anywhere they have the opportunity for it, right? Anywhere that they have the opportunity to strike, they're going to strike. And so to simplify that down, I always say that fraudsters will hit every user-facing touch point, right? We've seen it with account creation, we've seen it with login, we've seen it with customer service now, we've seen it with transaction. We see it across the entire customer experience journey. And so what I feel is what I would recommend for platforms looking to expand their functionality and expand their platforms, anticipate that. Know that someone is a fraudster will eventually try to take advantage of that form that you just created, or the BNPL that you just launched, or the app that you just launched. They're going to try to attack it. And so there's a process that I follow that might be helpful to the audience, and that is validate, verify, and identify, right? And so validate. If someone creates a form and they type in the accurate information, great, that'll allow them to create this new account. Fraudsters excel at typing in the accurate information. So we need to do more than just simply validate. Verify. Where is this person? Device intelligence might become extremely important. Where is this person? Can we verify that this person is who they're claiming to be? And that's where all of this talk about data comes from. And then that third step is identify. If we can identify what they're trying to do, if we can identify the behavioral of the session, if we can identify how they're interacting with the platform, we can start to tie that into different models that we've seen either across the industry or past on our platform, and we can start to identify what their behaviors indicate to us, and we can start to make well-informed decisions. So that would definitely be the process. Understand that your processes are going to be attacked by fraudsters, and then ask yourself, am I validating, am I verifying, or am I working to identify their behaviors as good or bad?
Yeah, I love that, Alex. I think, Liz, to your question, I think there's a very strong correlation to an organization's ability to organize themselves, invest properly, put the right leaders in place, put the right disciplines and routines in place, and correlate that against fraud events against a brand. And so what I would say, if you're an executive looking at this space, ask yourself, like, what is the brand reputational risk for you underinvesting in your trust and safety in your fraud area? What would it mean to your brand? What would it mean to your reputation, aside from all the pragmatic financial losses that could be incurred by that? Then the second question I would ask is, do you have the right leadership in place? As Alex has inferred, this is a very disciplined space. It's constantly on. You have to be constantly evolving and moving as fast as the market. The whole identity space is moving very rapidly. How are you staying on top of that? And I think one of the faults I observe in working with clients is that they feel like it's a set it and forget it style of situation, when in fact it's the complete opposite. So with the good news is the platform industry has moved very quickly to adapt to this. And you can get a lot of leverage from a very small team, but that team has to be empowered to do the right things. And it's no longer the fraud remediation task-oriented style of work. It's really more higher level decisioning, higher level pattern recognition, interpretation of data, kind of strategy in terms of anticipating where the business is growing and evolving, and kind of linking with your frontline lines of business. So I think it's changed incredibly fast, but the good news is the industry has caught up, but the organizational models have to catch up as well.
Great. So I want to touch back on what you said earlier, Alex, about that this is really happening more and more at every customer touch point, which is why it's really become a customer experience conversation, not just a fraud or a compliance conversation. So I'd love to hear from both of you about how you're connecting and then even measuring some of the fraud controls within the customer experience organization. What metrics might you use, and what are there some other tips to make sure that fraud is a priority among the customer experience leaders? And maybe Phil, if we start with you.
Yeah, I'll hit on that. I think love metrics. So I think the classic ones are really about the productivity of your team. Like how many cases are they identifying per FTE? What's your in there? I'll just use some contact center parlance. We're really accustomed to using first call resolution. But the analogy is first fraud detection resolution. Like how many seconds, how many minutes does it take for your organization to identify a pattern? I'll bookend that by reminding everyone this is still about customer experience. So I think finding the impact or influence on NPS is really huge. I would even subsegment like NPS by different transaction types. Like if it's a high value transaction, like how satisfied are you? So I really think there's a really cool intersection happening between the classic CX metrics and the classic fraud detection and trust and safety metrics. New scorecard is emerging. I see smart organizations really starting to understand the interplay between both sides of the ledger, if you will.
Yeah, great points. And I think that from a fraud prevention perspective, once we accept fundamentally that every touch point is an opportunity for fraudsters to attack, we start to identify what data exists at every individual touch point, and that's cool. What a lot of rules-based systems, this is actually another speaking point to the value of AI and ML. What a lot of rules-based systems do is they effectively have the platform act as those walking around with like a hatchet. Can this transaction go forward? And it's just so decisive and definitive. Well, by leveraging AI and ML and taking into consideration the value of customer experience and customer satisfaction and low friction, what we can do then is map out the entire customer journey and start to track different behavior related things, right? So again, with the type speed, again, with the bot detection, again, with login attempts, all of these might be seen, if you create the right workflows, they might be seen as yellow flags. And then maybe on the second or third, suspicious activity, it's an orange flag, but it's still not red. Then when they try to transact or do something that is, that actually results in damage, that's where the decisive action comes from. And now the reason why that's so important and why I encourage building workflows in this way is because it allows you to be more accurate in your decisive action. When you take decisive action, you are certain, right, that those suspicious activities are deserve that type of action, right? So that's one. And then two is it gives the opportunity for more robust data models to come out of what you found, right? Because if we look at like ATOs, they're taking off. I've said that earlier. ATOs are taking off still, and they log into accounts in different ways. So maybe a suspicious behavior means that they did a password reset through customer service 2 weeks ago, but then maybe they also did another password reset today. Well, then they went in and they changed account details, and then they did this, and then they did that. Well, your customers need to be, your users need to be able to do those things if they need to do it. But then once they start to do these other suspicious activities, that's when we need to shut it down, because in combination, all of those items are indicating to us that this session needs to be shut down. And it'll be different for every organization. I gave a very long-winded yellow, red, just to draw it out. But yeah, it'll be different for everybody. But that's what empowers us to do what needs to be done by lowering friction, increasing accuracy, and leveraging AI in a way that rules-based models just can't do it.